I'm very pleased to have with us Michelle Abbott, who is the Director of Sustainability at Duke Energy, Paul Pruitt, who is the Senior Director of Corporate EHSE, and that stands for Environmental Health, Safety, and Engineering. I read it on the back. For a billion company. Dr. Weston, who is the Executive Director of the Shy Center for Sustainability at Furman, and then you've already met Karen with Bond Support. So, our purpose for this conversation is to talk about different elements as it relates to sustainability and, impacting your community and your environment. And I wanted to start because Karen gave kind of a definition of sustainability as it related to Bond Support, but I know everybody kind of has their own definition of that. So I want to start with very quickly, if we could just go, everybody give a minute or so about, for your organization and the things you focus on, what exactly do you define or how do you define sustainability? So, Michelle, would you start?
Sure. At Duke Energy, y'all hear me okay? Okay. I've been told I have a loud voice anyway. But at Duke Energy, we define sustainability as doing business in a way that's good for our people, the planet, and profits. So as you can see, we consider the environmental pillar, but we also include in there the financial and social responsibility. We came up with our definition about 10 years ago. It's had pretty good staying power. We went with the 3 pillars because we really wanted to encourage our employees to think holistically, to think big picture, and to think about the many diverse stakeholders we serve and how to best meet their needs. Environmental is very, very, very important to us as an energy company. We have an environmental health and safety department. That's their focus. Day and night, it's a very large department, but the company made a decision to create a small corporate sustainability group with a broad umbrella.
Great, thank you. All from Milliken's standpoint.
So Milliken is a 153-year-old privately held company. Actually, just went through our 3rd generation. So sustainability has been something that's been really in the middle of everything that we've done for. We didn't always call it sustainability. As a matter of fact, on the bio, I said I've been in sustainability for 5 years, but 30 years ago when I started with the company, I was doing energy reduction and water reduction. I didn't know that was sustainability. But really, we look at sustainability. Our definition is around the point that we only have one Earth. The resources that are here is what's here, and we need to do the right things today, but also protect the future generations, so our children, our grandchildren, everyone behind us. And we really there's a 2-pronged approach to that. One of them is as a manufacturer, in our manufacturing processes, how do we do that efficiently so that we best utilize the resources, try to eliminate waste. And then also in the products that we manufacture, how can we make products that also help that farther, so to be the products themselves more sustainable.
Great. Dr. Dripps?
Yeah, I'll dovetail nicely off of both the definitions on that. I mean, I think the biggest challenge, when I say I'm a director of sustainability, I think there's an automatic assumption it's just environmental sustainability. It's how do I recycle? I want to compost. I want to change my lights. And I always remind them that, yes, that is absolutely critical and definitely key piece. But I think hopefully what you've seen out of the talks that have come through, there is a human component. There is an economic component. And when I talk about sustainability, it's really looking at those critical linkages between the environmental, the social, and the economic pieces. That's where your viable solutions are going to come out of. And so if you want to back it out even further, it's really taking a systems look. Right? We tend to think things in a very kind of disciplinary, kind of very focused approach. But I think when you think about sustainability, you really need to take that whole systems kind of approach to things. If you're not familiar, I'm always looking for icons in terms of how do I engage faculty, staff, students, others to realize where their piece towards sustainability actually enters in. If you're not familiar, I heavily encourage you to go look at Kate Raworth. Her work, she's got some TEDx talks that are out there, but she has a book called Donut Economics that actually follows very nicely on what you were saying. So it's really the grand challenge of sustainability, or sustainability science. We've always tried to pit the idea of wanting to improve quality of life, but having these environmental constraints that seem to be actually working against each other. And so that is the grand challenge. We want to improve quality of life. I'm not encouraging folks to go back to twigs and berries and thatch huts. That's not realistic. That's not really where we're headed. But how do we improve the base quality of life to get the world's population to kind of some base social foundation, but we do that within the constraints of a finite planet. That is the grand challenge. It's what Kate called, that's the donut. So living in the donut is that safe and just space for humanity. And it's not easy, but it requires you look at the social components as much as just the straight out environmental.
Well, and that fits, Karen, very well with the definition you shared earlier. Is there anything you want to kind of elaborate on that?
Well, I'll just say that, you know, the Brundtland theory that we picked really fits with who we are as a faith-based organization. So, you know, one of our guiding principles is care for God's creation. And, you know, our current Pope has an encyclical that he has published that really talks about the fact that sustainability and creating sustainable decisions is how we're going to move society forward. So it speaks a lot to the previous comments. And for us, it was just a natural, you know, we're lucky and that we have that faith-based mission to guide us. So being in this space is just natural to us.
Perfect. So as we dive in, and please, if you have questions, raise your hand. You can make this more than just me asking a few questions. But I want to start with kind of what are some of the trends? You know, especially, you know, you mentioned, you know, Dr. Drips about systems approach and things of that nature. We've heard some things today that I think fit in a little bit. But what are some of the trends or some of the kind of cool things that are going on? Paul, can you start with that?
Sure. So, you know, usually, like Dr. Drips will say, people think about sustainability as being an EHS thing. So it's all about the environmental side. If you look over I would say especially the last decade, the definition of sustainability has really expanded. And so it's not just around what's your carbon footprint, what are your greenhouse gas emissions, you know, how much water are you consuming, but it's really expanding into all areas. A very good example of that that I would take is looking at, for example, the safety. So we believe that our people are very important resource for us, and we want everybody to go home at the end of the day in the same shape that they came to work. So one of the things that kind of falls under sustainability is a thing actually we were talking about. So I had the Furman course finished up a few months ago with their postgraduate course. Two of the instructors sit here beside me, so a lot of pressure. But one of the things we look at, like with safety, is hand printing. And so when you think about sustainability with hand printing, that's not the negative impact you have on your footprint, but what positive things are you able to do. And in this case, we have taken, in partnership with OSHA, we have been able to train the trainer for OSHA courses. So for the OSHA 10-hour course, during the awareness course, and with that, with some of our people and other people in the industry, have reached out and in the upstate have trained over 850 kids at different vocational schools. So they're going to work for somebody. Hopefully someone will come to Milliken and they'll fit right in with the culture with that. Or they go to another company, hopefully they fit in with their culture or help improve that. And these kids are pretty powerful for the aspect that they'll change their parents and they be a little bit safer and deal with what they do at home. So from that aspect of safety, that falls into the same thing with the product design that we have. As we put new products in, it's not just what it takes going into it, but how can you make it better? One example I think of, we have a new product line called Breathe. So it's an interior residential fabric. Has no fluorinated chemicals in it. Everything is natural. So being able to do something different like that to get the same result, so you have the same quality, but to eliminate some of the safety hazards or some of the negative impacts to that.
So let me expand on that real quickly, because we just heard two presentations where they talked about, the bottom line financial value too. And some of the decisions y'all make around that, how does the financials come into play?
Financials absolutely come into play. So I think, unless you're a government, you have to make a profit. Right? I mean, they're not going to keep paying. If we're not making, if we're not making something, they're not going to be keeping us around. But, so the profit, so you go back to the people plan profit model back to the Weston 94. That absolutely comes into play. There is a balance, but then there are things that you do, and there's not a. I was really impressed with the different speakers and stuff. I was thinking about things that we do. So we have a small transportation fleet, nothing like what we just heard about. But we've looked at alternative fuels on the transportation fleet. We've got the GPS tracking, the technology that's out there today is great. We've got solar panel applications that we've done just at one of the headquarters. Looking at a couple of other applications back, but it's never there's never an end all. There's always something else that's out there, and it's not one application fits everything. So financials do take part.
No surprise, and it sounds like that's, Michelle, something that has always been a part of what you guys have looked at, but it maybe is something that is attracting folks who maybe historically would not have thought about doing some of these things, to do it because they're seeing the value from a financial
Right. Yeah, if I could just elaborate that on a little bit. It's been our experience, and I think the earlier presentations also underscored any time that you use less resources, whether it's fuel, concrete, wood, paper, plastic, what have you, anytime you use less resources, you're respecting the planet's limits, and you're also going to be saving money. So it's going to go to the bottom line, and that's a beautiful thing. Just like the energy efficiency programs, it helps our customers, it helps us, cleanest power plants when we don't have to build, and it also helps the environment. So it's great when you can have multiple benefits. And what I tell people at our company is, I don't care which door you come in. Maybe you're coming in through the environmental door, or maybe you're coming in through the financial door, or maybe it's the people door. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you're doing good by that one along with the other two, or at least no harm, and then you're probably going to have a sustainable solution.
Great. Dr. Dripps, I wanted you to elaborate a little bit on what Paul mentioned, the program you guys have, because that really fits with kind of educating businesses about things they can do around sustainability.
Yes, I'll say a few things about it. You were asking about trends. So one of the trends I wanted to highlight is, whether some of you know or not, you can get a degree, actually now, an undergraduate degree in sustainability science. Furman, I was involved about 8 years ago in my department, or Earth and Environmental Science department, started an undergraduate Bachelor of Science degree in sustainability science. Have to admit, I was a little nervous when we started. Is the world ready for this? Are our employers ready for this? It has been one of the fastest growing majors in Furman's history. We have 50, 60 declared majors. It actually is bigger than our environmental science department within which it resides. So these students have gone on to do great things. They're going on and getting jobs and getting employment. So the idea of sustainability being a fad or a trend, that is long gone. I mean, this is here to stay. I think employers, industry, others have recognized that getting students or this next generation to think around interdisciplinary systems is where those solutions are going to lie. Not that the disciplinary training isn't important, but if you're only going to get that, you're not going to actually get to the root of a lot of these kind of grander challenges around it. The other program you're mentioning, Sam and Brad are here if you want to find out more about the corporate sustainability program. We have some alums and others, and I've spoken at that as well. So there are corporate programs. So if you have a company that's looking to learn more about how you can get your company in sustainability, I would heavily encourage you to visit with them here at the front table, and they can go into great length about when and how to sign up and how to get folks in there. I did want to follow one thing in terms of some of the trends that I see that I think that move the sustainability needle. One of those is, with the digital age being the way it is, companies are having to be much more transparent about what's happening within their companies. Folks are demanding, like, where's my food come from? I want to know where my food comes from. I want to go see it. And that, that's why farmers markets and other things have really just taken off. People want to know where companies have their investments, where higher ed has their investments. People are now beginning to ask these things, and I think it's actually been causing companies and others to actually, knowing that they're going to have to be transparent, not that they were hiding things necessarily before, but that data is much more accessible than it was before. And so I think it's causing them to look at themselves and be like, are we okay with this? People are going to find out about what we're doing and how we invested. And so I think that's helped kind of drive that discussion a little bit. And the other idea is I think we are coming to a point where true cost accounting is going to start happening. A lot of the externalities that were being just kind of put out there, now companies and others are being held accountable for their carbon footprint, their emissions, their waste stream on the front and the back end. That time is here, and I think once you start looking at true cost accounting, sustainability not only is the environmentally right thing to do, it's the economically better thing to do. So I think we are at this point where there's going to be, I wouldn't say an auto correction, but you're going to really see it being much more foundational, I think, as companies develop and move forward.
Great. Karen, I want to start with you on the question about what are barriers to being able to grow and continue initiatives around sustainability?
Barriers are a good question, because I think anytime you start something new, you have people that get on board and they're excited to learn, they're excited to implement it, and so, pardon the pun, but it's sustaining the change that is the big barrier, because I think you have to keep it in front of folks, you have to hardwire it in to what they're doing, and that's one of the things that we're working on in Bond Support. Our goal is that these principles that we're putting in place become integrated into how everybody does their job. And so our focus then becomes, and we're on a lean journey at the same time as an organization, so there's a nice marriage that occurs between lean leadership and lean principles in management and in a sustainable organization. And so I think one barrier is keeping that excitement up. So creating a good monitoring system or metric system, publicizing that information. What I find is as the workforce continues to be, celebrate diversity, because we have, the baby boomers, we have the millennials, we have the new generation that's out there that I'm trying to learn about. And they all get together in a workforce, their values, what values they hold personally are going to drive their workplace behaviors. So, paying attention to that and kind of understanding it and having conversations about it, to me is a good way to mitigate that barrier that I feel like really exists.
So, kind of building on that, one of the things that we've heard it before that sometimes, and I don't mean to sound negative in this realm, but it takes a while for our regulations to catch up. What has been some of the things that you've seen that either haven't caught up yet or that are starting to catch up around some of the regulatory? Michelle?
I'd love to respond to that one. A trend that we have seen in the last year or two that kind of speaks to that is a huge spike in stakeholder interest, especially investors, because we're an investor-owned utility. We've seen a huge spike in interest around climate and other sustainability issues, and it's not coincidental. It happened when President Trump announced that the U.S. he wanted the U.S. to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. All of a sudden, the inquiries just went up, and we have a saying in our shop that when the public policy drivers start to diminish, activism will always step in and fill the void. So we're definitely seeing that. Used to we would get investor inquiries maybe 2 or 3 times a year. It was a European small investment house. And now, the sustainability group, the investor relations group, we're connected at the Hill, and we're talking to mainstream investors like BlackRock, State Street, and they're asking really great questions around, how are you managing climate-related risk in the absence of policy? So the regulatory agenda can wax and wane, and you try to always collaborate, bring the regulators along, but it's important to realize that even without regulations, you're going to get the pressures, and that's the way it should be.
Great, Karen, if you want to, now let's see if there's any questions from the audience.
Yeah, so one of the things that I see as a real opportunity area that we have, we heard a great example of what big manufacturing did with the tax benefits and that's available to them. Speaking selfishly as a nonprofit or a not-for-profit status organization, healthcare facilities are such huge users of energy and producers of waste, yet we get no credits for upgrading improvements in our infrastructure. None, nada. So I have to talk some poor partner into taking those credits and then passing them on to us for us to be able to take advantage of that. And I just think, from a social justice or business justice perspective, we have such an opportunity if we really want to do greater good to be able to level the playing field with some of those rebates.
Yeah, I'd say, you might not think of hospitals and sustainability, but if I look at where our majors are going, a sizable number of them are going into the hospital. And our very first sustainability science major oversees the sustainability efforts of Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Fort Worth, which is like a Bon Secours size, GHS size kind of facility. Originally came in for recycling, and they realized, wait a second, there's so much more that could be done on the procurement side, on the back end. So I completely agree with you. That's one of those things, people don't necessarily think hospital sustainability, yet it is probably one of the fastest growing areas in sustainability science right now. I would say just one other thing about one of the challenges. I think the biggest challenge that I always find, and although I think many companies are coming around on it, is that short-term versus long-term investment. So when you talk about ROIs and stuff, a lot of these sustainability efforts, there's upfront capital cost. That without a rebate or others sometimes pose real risk. Even if you can say it's a 10-year payback or a 5-year payback, someone's got to pay that money up front to do the lighting or other things. And so I think for me, I spent a lot of time trying to convince administrators, other folks that look, as long as this building's going to be here for the next 50 years, and there's even if it's a 25-year payback, it's the right thing financially for us to do, not just the environmental. But again, there are challenges associated with that of raising the capital up front or borrowing the capital up front to be able to pay that off. So I think that has, to me, always been one of the biggest barriers kind of around this.
I want to open it up real quick for questions. Anybody have Alan?
Question for Paul. Coming through the textile industry, I remember that Nelson was always an innovator on the cutting edge, not only in technology, but energy savings, sustainability. And I remember that y'all were leaders in zero waste landfill. How has that impacted the company, the bottom line, and
So actually, all of that does help the bottom line, and that's also one of the reasons why we've been able to survive this long. Really, it's around innovation and looking at sustainability under that innovation. So, for example, with the landfills we've had since the 1980s, around 1990, we had an initiative to go to zero landfills. So put nothing in landfill. And back about, I guess, 18 or so years ago, we got down to about 4% that actually goes in landfill, everything else, nothing else in the landfill. And part of that, I think, behind it, if you put a target out like that, then you're saying, all right, what do I do with it? Well, don't create it. So how do you eliminate the waste? So everything that you waste, you pay for that on the front end. So why are you having to waste it? So try not to waste it, so you get the maximum use out of it. And if you can't use it as primary way that you bought it for, how do you have a way to reuse it? Then from that, then you go to recycle, and then you go down to where, landfill is the absolute last option. But the innovation is the critical point. So we're always looking at new technologies. We've always gone forward trying to find more innovative ways, both for the products and for the processes. Because you got to stay ahead of the curve. I love what you're doing with the houses. That's absolutely the right stuff, and you'll have a very good business.
We got time for one more question. Yes.
Along the lines of Duke's program to reduce peak energy use of the air conditioner and shut-offs, why don't you have time of use program so that peak energy use can be used during the time of use program? Why does Duke not have that in this area?
Okay, I'm gonna let Linda take that since that's her, that's right in her wheelhouse.
Yeah, we actually do have time of use rates. They're not very well subscribed. In order for a time of use rate to be effective, you need high rates during your off-peak times, and our rates are already fairly low. So we would have to drive up the on-peak rate, which would make the rate punitive, and nobody would subscribe to it. So we have time of use rates, but they just don't use them. People don't use them very much. They work better out in California, where you're getting charged 30 cents a kilowatt hour, then you're motivated to move off peak. But the differential isn't dramatic enough, really anywhere in the southeast, for the time of use rates.
And one other question, why did you drop the rebate program that was for the solar power, which was such a benefit? And I just installed solar power and it cost me $6,000 more.
We met the statutory limits.
Plans to reinstitute it?
That is the Act 236 reboot that they're looking at, and yes, they're looking at what is the right way to go forward. Those programs were really expensive, and so in a question of sustainability, the fact that they're really expensive is something that needs to be considered. But we stopped because we met the limit.
When you put it back in, you're going to make grandfathering those that...
All right, with that one, I think we'll answer that online. We could obviously spend another lots more time on this. I appreciate you guys very much, and just sit tight. We'll wrap up here for a second, but thank you all. We could have a round of applause for all of these issues are really wrapped into multiple elements. There is the public health issue. We want all of our residents to be healthy and have the opportunity in that realm. We know economically it's important, both from a standpoint of the stability of our manufacturing and things we have here, but also because there are ROI and opportunities for businesses, and we know that it's certainly important to our environment and our greater good and community. So all these pieces kind of flow together. Hopefully you've learned something today, made some contacts, and I think some of our speakers and folks will be here. Our folks that have groups out here, please grab something as you head out. I want to again thank our sponsors. First, Bon Secours as our premium sponsor. Thank you guys so much for everything or being involved with this. I think as you saw, it fits very much with their mission to talk about these important issues. Then DuPont Natural Gas, Evergreen Environmental. I wanted to, Rob is here representing them, and we've got a really cool gift from them. It is your not quite life-size recycle can. So be sure and take that with you when you go home. REWA, and then WSPA TV, as you saw when we showed the videos earlier, they have been a key partner for us since the beginning, so we really appreciate them as well. I again want to thank our steering committee that did a great job on this. I want to thank Flourish Events that helps us, and then I introduced Dewey earlier, and then of course TV Center has done a great job. So again, thank you guys for being part of this. This was first time we've done this kind of workshop. We're going to ask for your feedback and see how we can move forward and continue to do these. If you're interested in being part of the Air Quality Advisory Committee, if you're not already, we would love to have you involved. Please reach out and be part of that as we move forward. And I do want to mention, there are on your table, TANAPCOP has our regional summit coming up here at the TD Center on the 25th of September. If you're not already planning on coming, I hope you'll join us for that event. We have a great group of 800 to 900 people talking about how we can work collaboratively as an upstate region around a wide array of issues. So again, thank you guys so much for coming, and I hope you have a great weekend.